that the only way that they will heed the solemn warning of the man, the only way to see the man's face or to be accepted by that ruler, that man in Egypt, the only way to approach him in his sovereignty and not be killed, and to find instead grace and to find blessing and to find life, is found in this repeated phrase of Judah. What does he continually say? Look back at verse 3. The man said to us, "You will not see my face," what? "Unless your brother is with you." He repeats it. "Unless my brother's with me, I ain't going. If you send our brother with us, we will go buy food. If you do not send him, we will not go down." So who is Judah talking about here? Who is the key to the survival of the children of Israel? Benjamin. He's the catalyst of the children of Israel to obey the Father's will. The Father's will wants them to go to Egypt. What's the catalyst for them to do it? A beloved son is. Benjamin is. We have to kind of flip our thinking here, because when we say the beloved son, we've only been talking about Joseph up to this point. But now you kind of flip your thinking a bit. There's another beloved son. It's Benjamin. And Benjamin, like his older brother Joseph, was especially beloved by Jacob or Israel because Benjamin, just like Joseph, was the son of Israel's most beloved wife, Rachel. And you'll remember that when Rachel was bearing Benjamin, she named him a different name. She said, "This is the son of my sorrow." What did Israel say? No, this is the son of my right hand. That's what Benjamin means. So he is very special. Your right hand is important to you. Use it for everything. Benjamin, like his older brother, was treated specially by Israel. And we just saw that in comparison to his brothers, I mean. So that was the very reason that Israel didn't send Benjamin the first time that they all went to Egypt in Genesis 42. But now think about this. Ask yourself, did the brothers hate Benjamin like they hated Joseph? Did the brothers plot to kill Benjamin like they plotted to kill Joseph? Well, we have no evidence of that. It doesn't seem that they do. Here, though, they recognize something. They recognize that the beloved son, the brothers recognize that the beloved son is the key to their survival, because they feared and respected the man, the ruler in Egypt. And the man, that ruler in Egypt, required that they come with that beloved son to live and to not die. So, were they just using the beloved son? I mean, these guys, they don't have a great track record. So, and I'm just naturally suspicious of anyone because I'm a prosecutor and I think everyone lies. But so I'm thinking, were they just using Benjamin? Was this just a manipulation of that beloved son to get something? Or did they really consider Benjamin a brother? Did they love him? Had the brothers changed in their relationship to a beloved son of the Father? That's kind of the question we're going to look at this morning. And that's where the focus is on the last two changes that we're going to look at that we see in the brothers. The last 2 points under our heading, a replaced response. So let's now look at subpoint C, which is our third one. And we're going to find here a replaced responsibility. A replaced responsibility in verse 8. And here's kind of the main thought of this one. A commitment to the life of the son rather than the death of the son. So after Judah, speaking for all the brothers, refuses to heed the word of their father unless they heed the word of that man in Egypt and bring their beloved son Benjamin. And after Israel complains that they had even told this man that they had another brother, Judah speaks again in verse 8, where we find this replaced response to a beloved brother. So look with me at verse 8. It says, Judah said to his father Israel, "Send the lad with me, and we will arise and go, that we may live and not die. We, as well as you and our little ones. So, stop there. What is the direction of Judah to his father? Or in other words, just real simply, what action word does he want Israel to take? What does it say in your Bibles? Send. Judah says, send the lad with me. Now there in that little action word send, a change is highlighted. We should be like, wait a minute. I'm reminded of something from the past with that word send. So let me ask you, when was the last time that Israel sent a beloved son? Yes. It was in Genesis chapter 37. That beloved son was Joseph. His brothers hated Joseph. They were jealous of Joseph. So flip over to chapter 37 with me, and I'll start reading in verse 12, where we see this happening. In fact, the prior verse says how much, they hated him or jealous of him. Verse 12, then his brothers went to pasture their father's flock in Shechem. Verse 13, Israel said to Joseph, are not your brothers pasturing the flock in Shechem? Come, and I will send you to them. And he, Joseph, said to him, I will go. Then he said to him, go now and see about the welfare of your brothers and the welfare of the flock, and bring word back to me. So he, Israel, sent him, Joseph, from the valley of Hebron, and he came to Shechem. So here we are. The last time that the father sent a beloved son, the father never saw that beloved son again. Now Judah is directing Israel to send a beloved son again. The last time the father sent a beloved son for the good and the welfare of his brothers and the flock, to bring them a word from the father, right? Remember we studied this out? And how did the brothers respond? The brothers responded to this good thing by abusing the beloved son, by selling the beloved son, by acting cruelty to the beloved son, and basically declaring the beloved son dead. The last time the father sent the beloved son, their brother, the brothers had shown no familial kindness or commitment or care, but just the opposite, only hatred, only cruelty, only apathy. And Judah, this guy talking here now in Genesis 43, Judah was among one of those brothers that had plotted to kill and betray his own brother. But here in Genesis 43, we got to change. Judah steps forward on behalf of the brothers and displays this great change in his request that the father send the beloved son. This time there's no rejection and betrayal of the brother who's beloved by the father. Rather, what do you see? We see here a commitment which Judah's response highlights in 3 different ways. Of course, I'm going to throw another 3 in there. Number 1, a commitment to be connected to a beloved son. He says, send the lad with me. Now, understand, Judah doesn't just say, send the lad. After all, the ruler in Egypt only required that the youngest brother be brought to him so that their words would be confirmed. Technically, he didn't say who had to bring the younger brother. It could have been any one of them. No, instead Judah says to his father, send the lad with me. The last time that Israel had sent a beloved son in Genesis chapter 37, who did he send him with? Nobody. Israel sent him alone to make a connection to his brothers, out of a commitment to the brothers. But did the brothers want to be connected with that beloved son Joseph? Oh no. They hated Joseph. They rejected his position. They rejected his word. They rejected his person. They were geographically far from him to the point where the beloved son had to travel days to find them, to check on their welfare, to bring them a good word from the Father. And Genesis 37:18 tells us that when they saw him coming from a distance, and before he came close to them, what? You remember? They plotted against him to put him to death before he even got there. Before Judah, I'm saying before, prior, Judah and his brothers did not want Israel to send that beloved son. They didn't want Israel to send Joseph to check on them for their welfare or their good. They see him coming and they roll their eyes. Here comes this dreamer. They didn't want to be with the beloved son. They didn't want to be associated with the beloved son. They threw him into a pit. They didn't want to be related to the beloved son. They sold him into slavery and treated him worse than an enemy, not a brother. But now in Genesis 43, we have a great change. It's revealed in the words of Judah on behalf of the brothers. Now Judah does want Israel to send the beloved son. Not just to them, to check on them. He's saying, send him with us. And not just with them as brothers. Judah steps up personally and says, no, send him with me, personally. Judah says, send the lad with me. I ask, Father, that you would let me be with your beloved son. I ask, Father, that you would let me be closely associated with your beloved son. And I would commit myself in relationship to this beloved son. Is that a change or not? Yeah. Friends, when God the Father sent his one and only beloved son, Jesus Christ, to his brothers, that is the children of Israel, he did that for their welfare. He did that to bring a word from God to them for their good. But friends, they did not want him to come. And when he came and they saw him coming at a distance, and when he appeared before their eyes, they didn't want to be with him. They didn't want to associate with him. They didn't want to claim him as a brother. But what did they do? Instead, they plotted what? They plotted to kill him. They abused him. They didn't want to claim him as their own, as their king. They instead sold him as a what? As a slave for 30 pieces of silver to a foreign people. But friends, God is faithful to his eternal covenant promises to the children of Israel. He is. Even when they're not. And he's faithful to you if you're his, even when you're unfaithful. And guess what? You're unfaithful. Sorry. I am too. The children of Israel are going to change, just like we see a change here in Judah. There's going to come a time when the children of Israel are going to say, I want to be with that beloved son. They will eagerly seek to closely associate with him and commit themselves in relationship to Jesus Christ as their king. This is a picture, friends, of what's coming. But Judah, on behalf of the brothers, displays not just a commitment to be connected with a beloved son, but his words display next, number 2, under point C, a commitment to go with a beloved son. A commitment to go with a beloved son. He says, and we will arise and go. Judah not only asks his father Israel to send the lad with him, Judah describes what they're going to do together, right? Look again at verse 8. Judah said to his father Israel, send the lad with me and we will arise and go. Let's stop just there. Now, it's one thing to show or to declare a commitment to be with someone. It's another thing to be committed to go or to walk with them. To go or to walk with someone is an extension of being committed to them. Now, after I met my wife, Christine, it didn't take me very long to figure out that I wanted to be with her. And thankfully, she felt the same way. And it didn't take very long where I couldn't go a day without seeing her or being with her or going here or there with her, delivering cakes with her and praying I didn't drop them. I wanted to move through life with her. Now, it would not make sense to have a commitment to be with someone, but not go through life with them. Those things don't coincide. To say, I'm going to be with you, but I'm not going to walk with you. And the strength of the commitment to be with someone is evidented or is shown when you go with that one you have committed yourself to through what? Through bad stuff. Through the unknown, into danger, through struggle and pain. When you see that type of love and commitment, isn't that a beautiful thing? To see maybe a husband's commitment to a struggling or sick wife, or a wife's care to a husband who's handicapped or unable to do anything for themselves. Here, Judah says to his father, send your beloved son with me, and we will arise and go. Where are they going to go? Think about this. They're going to go into that place of danger that this father is fearing. This place that's already swallowed up one son, Simeon, who's back locked up. They're going to go into the unknown. They're going to go into separation, which is something Israel fears with his beloved son. They're going to go into struggle, possible pain, and possible death. He's saying here, Dad, I and your beloved son, we're going to get up and we're going to go into this together. Now, is this a change? You better believe it is. Did Judah and the brothers before, in their relationship to the other beloved son, Joseph, did they arise and go with that other beloved son, Joseph, when he went down to Egypt into danger? No. They admitted in Genesis 42:21 that they closed their ears and their hearts to the distress of his soul when he pleaded for them not to let him go. When he pleaded with them not to sell him and abandon him as a slave bound for Egypt. And even after Reuben returned to the pit, you remember Reuben wasn't there. He's the oldest. He returns to the pit. He laments about what they've done to Joseph. Did Reuben then say, all right, get my donkey? They love their donkeys for some reason. We'll see that in this chapter. He's going to take our donkeys. Get on your donkey. I'm going to go get him. Did he do that? No. Did any of the brothers do that? Arise and go after the beloved son. Let's chase down those Midianite traders. I don't care what it costs. We'll pay back. We'll buy them back. Or if they won't let us buy it back, we'll take them back by force. Anybody do that? No. Did any of his brothers, through the years and years and years of them dealing with their guilt over their sin and not knowing what happened of their brothers, say, I can't take it anymore. We don't know where he is, but let's go and find him? While Joseph's struggling and in pain and going through trials in Egypt? No. Instead, they covered their sin and they declared him dead and gone. And through the years that passed, they tried to forget him as dead. But it's obvious from Genesis 42 that they didn't forget, that they knew a reckoning was coming for their sin because of their beloved brother's blood. But never in all those years did they arise and go after the beloved son. But now in Genesis 43, they do. Judah recognizes the risk. Judah recognizes the danger in Egypt, and he says, I'm going to go with the beloved son to that place. Friends, a commitment to the true and ultimate beloved son, Jesus Christ, to say I want to be with Jesus and associate myself with your beloved son, Lord, it's not just to say it. It's to arise and to go with him into a place of danger, into a place of struggle, and into a place of pain. That's not going to fill up a lot of pew seats, but it's the truth. Matthew 16:24 says, Jesus said to his disciples, if anyone wishes to come after me, what does he have to do? You know this. He must deny himself, take up his cross, and follow me. For whoever wishes to save his life will lose it, and whoever loses his life for my sake will find it. For what will it profit a man if he gains the whole world and forfeits his soul? Or what will a man give in exchange for his soul? You have to understand that to know the blessing of God, to live and to not die, friends, you have to be with the beloved Son. And you have to arise and go with him in his way and not your own. That's called dying to yourself. That's the hard part. And the way of the beloved Son we read here is the way of the cross. And the way of the cross is a way of danger and struggle and pain of dying to yourself. Why? Why would you go through all that? Because you see the reward. Because there's nowhere else to go that you may live and not die. That's why you do that, so you may live in Christ. How do you do this? You do it by faith. Faith, simply believing and trusting and resting in the word and promises of God. That's the way Moses did it. He had to do it in Egypt too. That's what it says in Hebrews 11, verse 24. By faith, Moses, when he had grown up, refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter, choosing rather, what? You remember this, to endure ill treatment with the people of God than to enjoy the passing pleasures of sin, considering the reproach of Christ greater riches than the treasures of Egypt. Why? For he was looking to the reward. Does that apply to Christians? Of course it does. We're supposed to also be looking to the reward by faith. This has always been the way. It will be the way for the Jewish people in the future. They will not only declare a commitment to the beloved Son, Jesus Christ, they will arise and go with him. They will take up their cross and they will follow him. They will endure ill treatment and consider the reproach of Christ greater riches than anything this world has to offer, because they will look to the reward. And so will every believer that's not a Jewish person. What's the reward? It's the same reward that Judah and his brothers were looking for. That leads to the third commitment displayed in Judah's response. Number 3, under C, a commitment to the life of the beloved Son and the family. A commitment to the life of the beloved Son and the family. Judah's words of commitment to be with the beloved Son and to arise and go with the beloved Son is a commitment to the life of that beloved son, Benjamin, and the family of the beloved son, Benjamin. Look again with me at verse 8. Judah said to his father Israel, "Send the lad with me, and we will arise and go," here it is, "that we may live and not die, we as well as you and our little ones." So what this last statement here is a purpose statement, right? Judah's purpose statement of why he's doing this, why he is committed to be with the Son, why he is committed to go, arise and go with the beloved Son. It is because Judah is committed to the life of the beloved Son and the life of the people of the beloved Son. Judah says that we may live and not die. And that we includes the beloved Son. And when you see this, you have to say, here's another huge change. Were Judah and his brothers before, were they committed to the life of that other beloved son, Joseph? No. Did they want Joseph to live and not die? No, it was the opposite. We've already seen in Genesis 37 that exact opposite was true. Remember, together they committed to what? They committed to a plot to put the beloved son to death. Together, they committed to throw that beloved son into a pit. Together, they committed to sell that beloved son to the Midianite traders who were passing by. And together, they came up with a plan, and they committed to cover up their sin and then lie to their father and then declare him to be dead and gone. And make no mistake, that was a commitment to death. In my work, the greatest danger to criminals is not me prosecuting them. It's their buddies. It's the other criminals. Because somebody always squeals. Thank God. Somebody always talks. Somebody always slips up. God created us with consciences and guilt, and that comes out. And I can only imagine the conversation that these brothers must have had at multiple points in their rejection of the beloved son. They had to all be on the same page about this. All right, we're decided. We're all in this together. No one can slip up. Don't mess this up. Joseph's gone. Joseph's dead. We're considering him dead. They all had to buy into this lie. But here in Genesis 43, Judah, on behalf of the brothers, instead he declares a commitment to the life of another beloved son, Benjamin, which he declares is directly connected with, this is super important, directly connected with his own life and the life of all the children of Israel. This is the reward of being with the beloved son. This is the reward of arising and going with the beloved son. It's that we may live and not die, we as well as you and your little ones. Judah's commitment to his other beloved son, this other one, Benjamin, don't miss this, was a matter of life and death. This was a serious situation. But Judah's personal commitment to the beloved son was just as serious. How do we know that? Judah displays that in our next and final replaced response, subpoint D. So we're moving now to the fourth one, D. Well, now we find a replaced surety. I was going to make it another R, a replaced recognizance, but people don't know that word. It means the same thing. A replaced surety. Now, this is a surety for the life or the good of the son, rather than a surety for sin or death. What is a surety? What is a surety? Let's ask that question first. Here in Genesis 43:9, it's the first time we find the Hebrew that's translated surety, that it's used. And it means this, to pledge or to mortgage. When you have a mortgage on your house, it's a promise to pay. It's also translated this is interesting, mingled or intermingled or guarantor. The idea behind being a surety is the idea of pledging to be a personal guarantor of someone or something else that is owed. It means that you have associated yourself with someone or something else that your fate is intermingled with the fate of the other. So, that's the concept. Here in verse 9, Judah declares to his father, what? Look at it. I myself will be surety for him. That is him, the hymn's the beloved son, Benjamin. Again, Judah's use of the word surety, that sparks our memory. It highlights a change in the brothers, and it highlights a change in Judah in particular. We remember that Judah gave a surety on a prior occasion, but that was an occasion in connection with a deadly sin. But the surety that Judah's offering now is different. And we're going to highlight that difference in 3 points underneath D. Number 1, it's a personal surety for a beloved son. A personal surety for a beloved son. Look at verse 9 with me again. He says, I myself will be surety for him. You may hold me responsible for him. So Judah declares here that he, in his person, will be surety for Benjamin. He, in his person, will be the pledge. He'll be the guarantor of the life of the beloved son, Benjamin. In other words, what is Judah saying? Judah's saying, Dad, I am declaring to you that my life is intermingled with the life of Benjamin. So, if Benjamin dies, Judah dies. If Benjamin lives, Judah lives. Because guess what? We're so intermingled, we're like one. Now, this is quite different from the wicked surety offered by the eldest son Reuben in the prior chapter. Remind yourself in Genesis 42:37, where Reuben told Israel, you may put my 2 sons to death if I do not bring him, Benjamin, back to you. Put him, Benjamin, in my care, and I will return him to you. Was that a personal surety? No, that was not a personal surety. Reuben's 2 sons were probably heard that and were like, what? Reuben's 2 sons bore the risk through no choice of their own. And Reuben's surety, when you think about it, it offered no benefit at all to Israel, only pain. If that happened, he's saying, Dad, you can kill my kids. Does Israel want to kill his own grandchildren? No. It would make Israel guilty of murder, and it would make Israel even more aggrieved over the loss of his grandchildren. Makes 0 sense. But friends, this is a picture of the wickedness of Israel through the years that you read about in Scripture. That Israel was willing to sacrifice their children to idols and to the spirit of the age because they thought it would somehow please a false god. Such sacrifices do not please God, but they grieve the Father. But Judah steps up here in Genesis 43 and he says, no, that's a dumb idea, Reuben. Judah says that he himself will be the surety in his person. It's all of him. It's his name. It's his reputation. It's his possessions. It's his life. He declares that all of him is intermingled with the life of the beloved Son. Why would he do that? He already said it. To obtain good, to obtain blessing, to obtain life. That's the only way to do it. This is a huge change for Judah. Because in Genesis 38, he was also asked for a surety. In Genesis chapter 38, he was asked for a surety by his daughter-in-law who he had wronged. His daughter-in-law, who Judah thought at the time was a temple prostitute. And Judah desired to go into her. In other words, Judah desired to be intermingled with this woman who was not his wife and who he thought was a woman who sold her body as part of worship to a false god. In Genesis 38:16, if you want to flip over there, I can just read it to you. This woman, she asks Judah, "What will you give me that you may come into me?" Verse 17, he, Judah, said, "Therefore, I will send you a young goat from the flock." She said, "Moreover, will you give me," there it is, "will you give me a pledge until you send it?" Verse 18, he, Judah, said, "What pledge, what surety shall I give you?" And she said, "Your seal and your cord and your staff that is in your hand." So he gave them to her and went into her, and she conceived by him. So Judah's desire was to intermingle himself, to be connected with, to not only be with, but to arise and go with and intermingle with a prostitute, an adulterous woman who Scripture tells us, God's word tells us, her track leads to the dead. No one who goes to her returns again, nor do they reach the paths of life. That's Proverbs 2. And in order to obtain a momentary pleasure that would bring this ultimate death, Judah gives a surety. He gives a pledge. He gives a promise. And what is it? It's in the form of his seal, his cord, and his staff. These are physical items that identified Judah. They represented Judah, but they're not Judah. They weren't him. Now here in Genesis 43, Judah seeks to intermingle with a beloved son for the life of the beloved son, for his life, for the life of his family. And the pledge of the surety that he offers this time is not a representation of himself. It is himself. But it's not just a personal surety. Note second, that it is a clear surety for a beloved son. Look back at verse 9. I myself will be surety for him. You may hold me responsible for him. Here it is. If I do not bring him back to you and set him before you. There it is. Let's stop. So, listen, in the legal world, there are disputes about sureties, pledges, and contracts all the time. That's why the courts exist. That is why contracts exist. They clarify duties. They clarify responsibilities. They clarify consequences if someone doesn't keep up their end of the bargain. So here, Judah makes a clear statement to his father Israel about what he means when Judah says that he will be surety for Benjamin. His clear intention, his pledge, and purpose is to bring Benjamin back to Israel and set Benjamin before Israel. Again, we see the personal nature of this clear surety. Judah pledges again that he himself will do this specific thing, that he will personally set the beloved son before the father. So the sign of the pledge of the brother for the life of everyone is the presentation of the beloved son before the father. That's an important point. What a difference from Judah's prior pledge. Before he pledged to this lady that he didn't know was his daughter-in-law, that he thought was a prostitute, I will send you a goat from the flock. There's no clarity about what kind of goat. Is it male or female? Is it young or old? Is it sick or healthy? Who knows? There's no clarity about whether the goat will be sent. No clarity about where it will be sent. No clarity about the identity of who is going to receive said goat. And Judah doesn't even personally set the goat in front of this woman. Remember what he did?